Yo, what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we're keeping it geekly with our returning guest, Tony James. We're here to break down Star, Noir, and everything in between. And before we dive into this 1940s detective story with a nice, interesting extraterrestrial twist, Tony, how have you been, man, since you last been on? How did the Kickstarter go for you and everything in between?
It's good. The Kickstarter, went well. It was successful. We were halfway through making the book. Production of the book has been going great. A lot of people have been messaging me who missed the Kickstarter. They've been messaging me about how to get a book. And it was quite a few people. So I decided to set up an Indiegogo so that the people who missed the Kickstarter can be part of the initial fulfillment.
Ooh, how does it feel running two campaigns back to back? Is that stressful for you, or are you kind of is this something that you can maybe see yourself doing in the future more often?
This Indiegogo is less stressful because the Kickstarter is like, oh, if we don't hit the goal, the book might not exist. But now the book will 100% exist. It's just kind of getting some extra people in there to be able to read the book. So the pressure is much lower this time around. I could see it kind of working as a, if you miss the Kickstarter, in a couple of months, you can jump in on the Indiegogo and still be part of that fulfillment. So yeah, I could see myself bouncing between both.
And we also talked too, you were able to keep it up for 6 months to kind of act as like a storefront. Was that kind of one of the directions that led you to go to that platform this time around?
Yeah, I have some friends who do Indiegogos. And one of the things that they talk about is that, after you hit an initial goal, it sits there as a storefront for 6 months. And I think that's great. I would love to see Kickstarter implement something like that. I think it's just a way for people to continuously get access to your book. So,
after kind of just, chopping it up a little bit since you last been on, for anyone who's new and just wondering who you are, give us a quick recap of who you are and how you got into creating comics.
I'm Tony James. I am a writer. I've been writing for over 10 years at this point. I had this idea that combines two of my big passions, which is 1940s Hollywood and like noir and alien extraterrestrials. And I decided I wanted to combine them into this noir detective mystery about a 1940s detective who teams up with this gray alien to stop a shapeshifter who's killing fellow LAPD officers in Central State.
And I love it too. It is such an awesome twist. I know last time we were chopping it up about LA Noir, like how we both kind of just love that game, and it was such an interesting twist. What else have you been playing lately, or comics? What comics have you been reading?
Comics, haven't been reading much new stuff lately, just because when you're making a comic, it's hard to read stuff. But video game wise, I've been playing the Metroid Prime remaster, which I love. I played it originally when it first came out. It's still one of the greatest games of all time. And also Atomic Heart, which is just absolutely wild, especially if you like a BioShock type of game.
Yeah, we were talking backstage about it, and man, just the beginning part of that is just so gorgeous. Graphically speaking, it's just there's so much to take in. And I love how it's 1950, so that's right up your alleyway, right? My favorite part about it, and this is what I really love in those type of games, where it's like a retro feel, but it's like a retro futuristic feel, like Fallout kind of, like how everything's set in the 1940s or 50s, but there's technology there that we don't even have capabilities of.
Right. Yeah. I just love how just kind of how big the ideas are in Atomic Heart. I have so many questions about how this world works and how the technology they built in their story works. And it's just like a crazy fantasy of what if Russia won World War II? What would their society look like?
Yeah.
It's sort of like Man in the High Castle, that show that came out several years ago. Like, what if Germany won World War II?
I was gonna say almost like a Russian iRobot is kind of what I was picking up on.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Actually, there's a couple of moments, the way the protagonist, who's very, very cynical, very dry, the way he talks to some of the robots, I almost thought he would push them away, like the way that Will Smith pushes the robot head away in the movie, because he just has this this protagonist, he's just so over it, of this whole world that he's in. He's not really phased by any of it.
And I think that's why I love it so much, right? Because a lot of protagonists kind of really don't teeter in that territory. So I love how they're kind of just taking that personality and just exploiting it as hard as they can.
Yeah. And I just love it reminds me so much of BioShock. Like even the opening where you're sitting in the car and it's showing you around the world. I mean, like that's how BioShock Infinite starts. That's how the OG BioShock starts. You're not able to move, and while it's showing you the big world that you're going to start running around in.
So speaking of world, I mean, what's the world in Star Noir look like? You seem like you're really big into world building. I know we're in a 1940s detective setting. And our last conversation, if I remember correctly, you said you and the artist worked really hard to nail like that look of the 1940s.
It's both a grounded but also kind of a glamorized or stylized version of the 1940s Los Angeles. We chose a lot of iconic locations. I mean, if you played LA Noir, I think there's a lot of similarities between how both of these worlds are. In that you can be in a popular iconic location, like the 6th Street Bridge where the first murder takes place. But then you can very quickly find yourself in a empty street by yourself, and there is a shadowy alien starting to come towards you.
So what's an alien encounter look like in the 1940s?
Kind of horrifying.
You don't have like media to like sensitize you to or desensitize you to it, right? So like this is your first like time even seeing anything like this.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first time our main character, Alan, has an encounter with the alien, he runs into his house and grabs a shotgun to shoot it. So it does not, the first encounter does not go well. It's just, this is kind of a world that's just after the Roswell crash. So there's just kind of these kind of little inklings of what's going on with aliens. Do they exist? Is this sort of like a hoax? We don't really know. So it's just kind of people living in this analog world, and seeing an alien just absolutely breaks their brains.
Oh man, I could not even, I mean, seeing it, like the government's like confirming there's alien sightings now, right? Like that was in the news not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
in this era, it was just like, it was just a weather balloon. Don't worry about
it. not from China this time around, but we were talking a little bit about Atomic Heart and how the protagonist is kind of just all over. What is the protagonist like in this story? What type of person can we expect to see?
Alan Moore is a very no-nonsense, very callous detective. He's been doing this homicide work for several years. And he's kind of what you think of these noir 1940s detectives, not afraid to get his hands dirty to get information out of a suspect. What's funny about his relationship with his alien partner, Ellis, is that Ellis is, he's obviously not from here as an alien, but he's very benevolent. He's always very inquisitive. And always constantly criticizing kind of the brutish tactics that Alan would take. Instead of beating up this suspect, could we not just ask him more questions? So they have kind of a nice relationship between those two.
Was it hard to balance those personalities with one, kind of counteracting one another?
It's pretty easy, I would think. It's kind of like putting a cynic next to an optimist and just kind of seeing what happens. I mean, they'll clash, they'll have some commonalities. But yeah, when you just kind of, put two opposites together, it's just really interesting to see how they bounce off of each other.
No, absolutely. So what type of story are we looking at? Is this going to be like a one shot? Is this part of a mini series? Where is this book going to go after your Indiegogo is completed?
Well, this is book 1 of a 6-part series. It is a murder mystery full of red herrings. When you think you know who the killer is, that's when I switch it on you. Just a straight up murder mystery. These two characters are trying to figure out which shapeshifter is portraying one of their fellow officers. So you kind of get a little bit of that McCarthyism vibe. You're not really sure who to trust. Yeah, and I think once you get to the final twist of the story in the last book, I don't think anybody's really going to be ready for it.
Oh, that is so awesome. I love it. I love it. So real quick, let's go ahead. Let's take this opportunity, segue over to the Indiegogo, check out the campaign, and see what all the hype is about. There's some interiors that weren't showed on the image slideshow as well, so it's nice to kind of see some new images as well.
Oh yeah. One good thing about this Indiegogo is that since we've been working on more pages, now when you go to the Indiegogo, you can read the first 9 pages straight through, like full colors, full letters, full everything.
So we are looking at Star Noir Book 1. A 1940s detective teams up with a gray alien to stop a shapeshifter killing LAPD officers. Currently at $455 of a $2,000 goal with 37 days left to go. Everyone that is watching, right here is the link. Be sure to check it out with us. And yeah, so Tony, what is the difference between a gray alien and a regular alien? Are the gray aliens just the regular alien, but people just don't know that's the correct term for it?
Yeah, as far as I know, this is a gray alien. The reason I chose the gray alien is because it's very fitting for this era. It's just kind of that base model depiction, and I felt like if you're kind of going with this sort of retro story, why not choose the kind of retro interpretation of
Yeah.
Although how the gray alien communicates and how he moves around, all of that is based on real abduction stories.
Ooh.
I talked about how I'm a really big fan of alien conspiracies, and so a lot of those stories I used as an influence to create Ellis and kind of make him feel a little more grounded when you read him.
Grounded, throwing a little The Last of Us nod in there. I see you. So we have a look at some of these interiors right here, and right here is the bridge, the big bridge we were talking about earlier, correct?
Yeah, that's the 6th Street Bridge.
Gorgeous.
It's iconic for the time. They've remodeled it since then, so it looks nothing like this anymore. But yeah, this was a pretty iconic bridge. Actually, parts of how we designed it were pulled from LA Noir.
Okay.
Google Images, it only takes you so far when you're trying to find research images from 1940s. So to fill in the gaps, I would load up LA Noir and drive to that bridge, take a bunch of
awesome.
Take a bunch of screenshots and then send it to the artist.
Didn't you do an office like that too?
Yes. Yep. There's interiors, and I think there's one of the interiors when you scroll lower down the page. Yeah, and those interiors, they're also based on the interior buildings in LA Noir, and some from movies like LA Confidential.
So we get, and I love this right here too, the little nod right here with the blood and the ominous red eyes. This is awesome. I love the detail in this.
Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, I love the atmosphere that both the artist Pablo, who's from Argentina, and the colorist Vin, who's from Brazil, they just combined. They create such a great sense of atmosphere.
And it's 5 a.m, so the way it would bleed from dark blue to pink. They nailed that skylight perfectly.
Yeah. It kind of creates this feeling that that the sun doesn't get to him in time. That it's just out of reach.
And I really, really like these sound effects too. The blam, the fog, the crash, the squish when he gets clawed. Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah. I love this eye panel. I think it came out so good.
And then we have the abduction as well. So interesting. Are these? Is this like a nod to Fall? This kind of looks like a Vault Boy suit.
It started there. I mean, there were quite a few different images. I was trying to figure out something that was a little unique, but also a little familiar as well. That could also have a little bit of flair to it. So it's almost. I mean, the Fallout suit is like blue and yellow with some red in there, and these are purple and yellow.
I gotta ask because you're a gamer, so this time around I'm keeping my eyes open. And this was quick too. So this was like an hour and a half after, so he's seen that happen at 5 and then an hour and a half, or is this 2 different characters?
Well, these are 2 different characters. This was Perkins, who's the person that's killed in the beginning. You see him dead on the bridge in the following scene.
I got you. The hair. I should have looked at the hair. Totally different hair. Yeah. So he just got done getting abducted.
Well, this is actually a nightmare that he's having. and the story slowly gets into why he's having these nightmares. Is like,
Oh.
was Alan abducted? Is there a reason that the gray aliens are currently talking to him? Is it the first time a gray alien is ever talking to him, and he may not remember?
Mm-hmm. So, and if you explore it in your later issues, we don't necessarily have to spoil anything, but what does the alien abduction look like? You know, like in your head when you were creating the scene, like what did that look like for you when he was abducted, if he was?
It's very dreamlike. The thing about the kind of alien abduction aspect of it is that I tried to commit to the noir setting. So rather than having this noir setting and then having sci-fi elements sort of like derail the groundedness of this world, I tried to figure out how to make these aliens kind of fit into this analog, matter-of-fact 1940s setting. So the way we play all the alien encounters, it's very much in the 1940s world.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't try to get too fantastical with how we show these aliens. So yeah, it's the alien abductions. I think I keep using the word grounded, but it's kind of the best word to describe it. It's just so matter of fact, and is also based on so many alien abduction stories, like the way things happen. I don't want to spoil what happens.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
There's a couple of moments that are literally ripped out of alien abduction stories.
That's awesome. I love how you actually bring real life elements into this.
Yeah.
And then right here, it looks like, I didn't notice this before, but the wedding picture. So he has a wife as well.
Yes. That's also a thing that even this first book it gets into. He's he doesn't have a wife. He did, but how he lost his wife, the story gets into as well. But you get set up with that issue that he had, that personal dilemma he has with himself in the first book.
I really love the attention to detail, like how you kind of just like snake it in there without really putting too heavy of a spotlight on there. It's just like a real quick in and out. And I think it was executed beautifully.
Well, that's what I love about some of my favorite comics is that, all the panels, you can take a second look at them and get an extra piece of information. Greg Capullo, one of the greats, he always said that you got to be telling the story visually first before the words come in. And I really take that approach to heart. Because, I've got plenty of dialogue there, but the artists and we start really telling it visually first, and then I make adjustments to the dialogue to kind of fit the visual representation of these characters.
And then we have the crime scene investigation. So this all happened within a span of just a few hours, 7:30 a.m.
Yeah,
and already a crowd and everything popping up.
Yeah. So this is the aftermath of Perkins' death that you see with the alien in the beginning. And they really try to figure out what's going on. It's a whole mystery. I mean, there's you can see on the next page that his heart's been removed. This is actually a reoccurring thing with all the officers that get killed in the story. And then later in this very book, Alan meets with the coroner, and the coroner explains that it was removed using tools that do not exist. So it deepens the mystery as to what's going on.
So is there any special symbolism behind the heart? And again, if that's spoiler territory, we can just kind of brush over that. But out of all the different like body parts and things you could remove, why the heart?
I don't want to spoil too much, but I mean, I feel like explaining it is kind of a spoiler.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. No. This story, it does a lot of moves that you as the reader are intended to be distracted by. So that later, when I peel the layers back, you realize, oh, I was paying attention to this, and this other thing was going on the entire time. And you would almost have to go back and read it again to be like, oh, he absolutely laid it out in front of us. So the heart thing is basically where we start.
Yeah, you did say earlier there's a lot of red herrings in this, so that sounds like that could be potentially one of them. I love how there's just so many layers to this story. The deeper you dive into it. Real quick, we have Mama Geekly over on Facebook joining us. Welcome, good morning. Nice to see you, Mom. Thank you for stopping in. Stopping in, of course, as we're looking at the panel with the heart getting ripped out. So yeah, this is so gorgeous, and this is a gorgeous looking car too. You know, why give? Was this a common car back in the 1940s, or is this kind of like one of your favorite models?
Well, I do love a lot of cars from the 1940s. This one I chose because of the name. It's called a Studebaker Starlight. I thought that was kind of very fitting for the kind of alien aspect of it. But that is a real car. You know, it's a very cool car. Hopefully I get to actually sit in one of these cars one day. That's my hope. But yeah, there's so many cars that are from that era, and then also LA Noir, which helps again. You know, they have those galleries of all of those cars that they have, and all of those cars are based on real world cars too. So I was able to kind of collect all of those images and give them to my art team, so they can kind of create more authentic of the era.
See, feel. Mom, I told you gaming would eventually pay off.
Yes, yeah.
We actually have Mama Geekly saying, love the Studebaker. Yeah, it is a gorgeous looking car. We have actually some more interiors too. So right here is where he meets the alien for the first time, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're right now, like offline. I'm actually working on the remaining pages of this scene. So this is where we are. But this is a big moment here where the alien who becomes Ellis, he's telling him that a shapeshifter is the one that killed Perkins. He doesn't know who the shapeshifter is. He just knows that a shapeshifter was responsible. And then they'll meet up at the precinct later when Ellis is in his human form.
And I love right here too how when he's talking to him through his mind, it's like a whole different speech bubble. Like it's blacked out, it's green to give it kind of like, it feels like that extraterrestrial feels to it.
Yeah. Because when the alien speaks to him telepathically, you know, understandably, Alan has a big freak out about it because he doesn't understand how this voice is essentially whispering into his head.
And then you, if I'm not mistaken, you said this is like cold coming off of it, right? Because like right there, he's like breathing it out, or is this just the lighting?
No, it's very cold. The ship has caused some temporary radiation in the backyard that freezes the grass. In a page that you won't see yet, but when the book is done, you'll see. Alan notes how the backyard is cold and the grass is frozen.
So was that from more of your like research into like actual abductions?
Yeah. Yes. I don't know how much you can believe those stories, but a few of the stories they talked about how like the coldness of space is sort of brought with these ships, and it kind of freezes the ground around it. So I wanted to kind of bring some of those elements into this encounter.
You know, thinking about it though, like what is needed to run a spaceship, it probably would get very hot. It would need some sort of cool, you know, it just like kind of like thinking it out, like it would almost need something to kind of keep it cooled down, or it like would combust, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're who knows how alien ships are run? What kind of elements?
I'm not a shapeshifter. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
We got Mama Geekly saying, I believe too. I think, you know, I don't know though. I seen a really interesting thread how like the current sightings might be fake. It's like all the conspiracists don't believe the current sightings, but they believe the other ones, because it's just like, why would the government come out and say it, right? Like,
right. Especially when they haven't for years. Like, so this page is one of our world building pages. There's some story significance for Alan as to why he's checking up on this house being built. I don't want to spoil what that is, but that has a big payoff later in the story. But there's also another one of those creations inspired by LA Noir. There's a neighborhood in the game where all these veteran homes are being built, and we kind of took some images from that and created this scene.
And I really like it. I'm not going to point it out, but I really like how you, again, let the art tell the story. If you're observant, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not, back the book and find out. We get another interesting look at The Office. This was designed by LA Noir. I love how you use that game for a lot of reference points as well. Did that make it kind of easier with the relationship between you and your artist, so you didn't have to sketch all these?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, anytime you can provide a strong reference to your artist is makes the process a little bit easier. But yeah, this was like a combination of interiors from LA Noir buildings plus movies like LA Confidential, and taking some of those interiors as well to create this. I really love how the colorist created a lot of lighting. There's like sunlight coming through some of the windows. There's the shine on the office doors.
The shadows, like right here on the trousers too.
Yeah. And the artist, my scripts are very straightforward. I just kind of tell him the most important action, but he puts so much life into this office. Like I never wrote anything about, other detectives sitting at desks. I kind of think I might have mentioned like, oh, maybe you see like another one or two somewhere. But it feels really bustling. It feels like there's a lot going on. In this scene here, this is where Alan meets Ellis in his human form for the first time.
And if you look really closely, you can see him in the office as alien form. So that's why he's kind of like, charging in, guns blazing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because everyone else has no idea. So does this alien allow just him to see him in his alien form, or like what's the deal here?
Yes, for a story reason that the book gets. The first book even tells you what it is, but I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, there is an alien reason as to why Alan can see Ellis's gray alien form, and everyone else sees somebody who looks more like a Tom Holland type.
Yeah, how problematic would that be? Especially like your boss, like, yo, put your gun down. What are you? I'm just talking to this guy. Like,
yeah. Nobody else finds anything suspicious about Ellis. He's just a transfer in from New York, and because Alan is living a little bit too close to the edge by himself, his captain feels that he needs a partner to work this Perkins case, and that partner happens to be Ellis.
Gorgeous. We have Mama Geekly saying there's sightings over Superior all the time for many years. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I just think the ones that are being broadcasted by the government might be a little bit different than the ones seen by your neighbor down the street. So let's go ahead and check out some of these perks on the side. Hold on, I wanted to find a nice image to rest on. So we have the driver's seat for $10. Is this just kind of like a tip jar?
Yeah, basically just a tip jar. You vibe with the idea, you want to support it in some way. Definitely go for it.
And then we have.
Go ahead.
So if you want, what I'll do is I'll scroll down and you could call out the tiers if you want.
Oh yeah, sure. So these are all the same ones that were on the Kickstarter. The same price points, same rewards, perks. So the setup is the digital copy. If you just want to grab a digital copy. And then for $25, we get you the actual physical book. It's printed on very nice paper. It comes to you in a Gemini mailer, so it's pristine. So there's the digital copy. There's the book, and then we took some postcard prints, some like this one that you're landed on right here, this alien encounter. There you go. There are the two postcards. So we got some postcards of some kind of big moments. And then that comes obviously with the book and the digital copy. And then every tier, your name will actually be in the back of the book, kind of thanking you for supporting it and helping bring it to life. And then the Quarter Moon Motors. This is the baseball cards that you see here. Where
that's so cool. It's
got the detective badge on the front, and on the back, it's got the character and some character stats, and even the type of sidearm that they use. There's the story kind of gets into it, but Ellis's card does not have a gun because this character does not like to use guns, and you can imagine being in law enforcement and not using one that might get you into some trouble.
Yeah.
It leads to some pretty humorous scenes where he tries to take down a suspect without the use of a firearm.
And then we have a heavy hitter at $100, the Red Lipstick Murderer. So is this where you get the vintage poster?
Yeah, that's where you get the vintage poster. I really love how our colorist kind of added this kind of like vintage kind of layer on top of the cover. It looks like it's been folded, and it's a little weathered. I mean, when you get it, it's pristine. It has not been folded at all. But yeah, it just kind of has this kind of very vintage look about it that I think is very cool.
No, that is so awesome. So everyone watching, right here is the link to check out this Indiegogo. Be sure to check it out and back it if you can. If you're not able to, put this on Facebook and Twitter. Anywhere you can. Word of mouth is 100% free. Now, since this book has already been made, what would you like to tell to anyone the importance of supporting this project? You know, since we already got it made, what is the importance of helping support this and spread the word for future projects that you might be working on?
Well, it helps in making fulfillment a little bit easier, and certainly with how long the process of making the first book is. Supporting it also enables us to kind of work through to the second book. Like I said, there's 6 books. And so we really want to just kind of not take a break, just kind of move forward to the next book because everything is fully written. I mean, you know, it's not like we have an outline for where we want to go. They're full scripts ready to go, ready to be drawn. So yeah, supporting that book here, it definitely helps us fulfill not only this book, but get started on the future books. And then also, you know, if you're really interested in reading book 1, if you back the Indiegogo, you're not going to have to wait an additional year until we fulfill the second Kickstarter for book 2.
So are you looking at about roughly like a year in between each book, or is that, you know, do you have a timeline like in mind?
I think each book will be like one per year. There is a second story that's not Star Noir, a completely different project. If you see the way that I'm kind of mixing 1940s noir, you know, with some alien sci-fi, I have this other story that is mixing a traditional spaghetti western, also with some sci-fi. And
Ooh, that sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah,
sounds like a lot of fun.
I don't want to get into that one yet. I just want to, you know, I think what we have on our plate right now is, I mean, for me personally, you know, getting the book into people's hands, you know, kind of proving to them that this is a very great story. And then once we have the second Kickstarter for book 2, then I think I can kind of push forward the Western I was telling you about.
And then real quick, before we let you go, any social media platforms that you would like to shout out to any of our listeners, where they can find you? I know you also do some deep dives too, so if you want to shout out your YouTube, feel free.
Yeah, well, my YouTube channel is called The Writest, WRITEST. I break down, do story breakdowns for video games. One of my most popular ones is a Last of Us video where I talk about, spoilers, Joel's death, where I just focus on that. The short for that has like 33,000 views.
Wow.
2,000 likes and only like 15 dislikes. So I didn't miss the mark there. What's funny about running a YouTube channel is that I wasn't trying to be like a hot take channel. Like I'm not really wired like that. But it's funny with The Last of Us, I was very objective, very middle of the road. So there are critiques, but there are also a lot of compliments. And people in the comments will leave you like thick paragraphs.
Oh yeah.
Of either like I didn't compliment it enough, or I didn't totally like trash it and bury it enough.
Well, actually.
Yeah. So it's been very fun. I just did a new one for the 3-leaf clover heist mission in GTA 4, if you remember that one. Just talking about how like that's the best heist that GTA has ever created, and just kind of breaking down why that is from like a story perspective.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
So the Writest, so that's The Writest on YouTube, and then you can find me on the Twitters at T/J, and also on Instagram, Banana Bat. That's where I make a lot of reels there with the art from Star Noir, and I set it to 1940s music. It's pretty entertaining if you want to check that out. And it's also a good way to just check out new art, because the second I have new pages colored, I create a reel, I throw it up on the Instagram.
That's awesome.
So it's a great way to like check out the new pages getting made.
No, that is awesome. So, Tony, before I let you go, you've been on the show, you know the drill. We always like to ask for a little bit of advice, and this time around, I want to kind of change things up and make it a little bit more challenging. So, for anyone that is writing their script and they're looking at trying to tell the artist to like create art that will tell a little bit of the story for them, how would you do that in a script? That seems like it would be such a challenge to just make it happen correctly.
Well, when you're working with an artist, I think you have to remember that your ideas are being funneled through their interpretation. I mean, when you're kind of doing the audition process of trying to find the right artist, you're looking at someone who has the interpretation that best fits what you're looking for. And then when you're working with the artist, it's better to focus on the end result, the end goal. Like, I
Hmm.
want this alien abduction. I want this alien to land in panel one. And if it happens in panel one, great, you're all good. So don't get caught up in the angle being not quite the angle you had envisioned. It's you want the end goal of what you're looking for to be on these pages. And that's also how that's also how you don't drive your artist crazy, because
Yeah, yeah.
what they don't like is to feel like you're strong arming their interpretation. Like, every note that I give to my artist is really just about clarity. Oh, can we see this a little bit, this hat a little bit more? Can we see this ship a little bit more? But it's never change this camera angle or change this pose. It's really trying to roll with whatever they came up with.
No, I think that is some sound advice. Thank you. I think, kind of having that ability to maybe sandwich it is the word I'm looking for, where you're not really like, hey, I didn't like this, like, find a way to compliment, and then be like, hey, can we bring this more into detail, more into clarity? I think the way you word is just as important as the script itself, right? You don't want to be, you don't want to come off as like a dick to your artist. That's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and then the way you write the scripts, I mean, you have to kind of write them as a blueprint. They're not really, to use flowery language to describe things, that doesn't really help the artist that much. They're just sort of extra. It's really more for you as the writer. It's one thing to kind of write prose, or maybe your own personal like film version scripts where you kind of give flowery expressions for describing the world. But with my artist, it's like, the alien lands in this panel, and Alan has a shocked reaction in panel two. He runs away in three. Like, you just kind of trim it down to the bare essentials. So it's a very clear blueprint for what they're supposed to make.
No, I love that. Everyone watching, right here is the link. Be sure to back this today. And if you're unable to, put it on Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you can. Word of mouth is 100% free. Tony, thank you for swinging by. Everyone watching, I hope you all have a lovely Friday afternoon. But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.